Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
With me, the Gabbie and football supremo, ace and a legend, Mr. Jim McCalliog. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Gabbie. Yeah, I'm very good. I'm looking forward to tonight, and I hope it's of interest to all the people out there. And I had a wonderful career in football, and I still love the game.
We all do. We all did. It's a love of the game that really never diminishes and never dies, although we might not like it or love it as much as what we used to, because there's certain things in the game that put us off a little bit. But when we see the game played as it should do and should be played, it is like watching poetry in motion. There is no greater game on the planet than association football. Now, you started your career in Scotland, in, for me, football's capital of Scotland, Glasgow, didn't you?
Yeah. It all started from there in the school team and in the boys' club team, and then further afield on to Glasgow schoolboys and then Scotland schoolboys, and then I had quite a few clubs looking for me to go to sign for them, and I decided to go to Leeds United.
Now, in those days, the Scottish football, for people that are watching Scottish football these days, you could say it's in a little bit of a decline. Back in those days where you come through the back streets of Glasgow, because you were from the Gorbals, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was from the Gorbals, proud as well to have come from the Gorbals. Great people there. Never ever hidden the fact that I was from the Gorbals. A lot of people kind of think, it's not such a nice place, but that's up to them. As far as I was concerned, we were brought up well, and I thoroughly enjoyed being in the Gorbals, and that was where I got a lot of the football from, and there were certainly some great players in the Gorbals that could have gone on to bigger and better things, but unfortunately it didn't happen for them.
And Scotland produced some of the greatest players that's ever graced the planet, and we're going to talk about a few of them. But there was a great team that were growing up during those early 60 years that went on to conquer European football. You went to Leeds as a youth player. Was there ever a chance that you could have gone to that grand old team of the boys and Celtic?
Yes, unfortunately, twice Celtic came after me, and I had already gone to Leeds first of all, and then when I came back from Leeds, I went to Chelsea, and Celtic were represented twice, trying to get me to go to Celtic, but it's just one of them things, Gabbie. Yeah. It wasn't to be, and of course I was thrilled. As Celtic became the first team in Europe to win the European Cup, and that was fabulous, and especially it being all nationals and all born within 35 miles of Celtic Park.
Now, the only one that was born a little bit out of Glasgow was it Bobby Lennox?
Yes.
He was a foreigner, wasn't he? He wasn't a Glaswegian.
Bobby was in Ayrsham, and Bobby was a great player first and foremost, but he's also a superb human being, and we know, me and Debbie, my wife, we know Bobby and Catherine, Bobby's wife, very well, and they're lovely people.
Now, in that 67, the year England had just won the World Cup, on the 11th of April in 1967, a group of young Scottish players come to Wembley and showed England really how to play football, and for some time after were undisputed champions of the world because you've beaten the European champions. Let's start there before we go back to Leeds, because, that was not the first time that a Scottish team had come to Wembley. In 1928, there was another group of Wembley Wizards when it was Alex Jackson and Alex James totally destroyed England 5-1. Did Scotland that day in 1967 draw anything from the 1928 demolition of England?
I don't think so, yeah. Gabbie, but the thrill of it all for me was that most of the players in the team, I had seen them from afar, yeah. And to be lining up with them to play against England, who were the world champions and hadn't been beaten, I think it was for 19 games, which showed you what a good team that England were. But the thing was, we had a lot of great players in our team, and I think we were pretty confident, although obviously England were favourites. But I think, honestly, Gabbie, I think I was one of the few Scotsmen really to appreciate England winning the 1966 World Cup final at Wembley, because obviously I was plying my trade in England, and I thought that can only be good for the game in England. And I was thrilled when they won the World Cup, and then to come up against them the following year on my debut, that was just a dream come true.
How did it feel? Talk me through the goal, because Jinky wasn't playing, he was injured. And I think, did Bobby Lennox play in that game, or was it Bobby Murdoch? One of the Bobbies was injured and didn't play, didn't they?
Yeah, it was Bobby Murdoch. Bobby Murdoch didn't play. Yeah. Bobby Lennox was one of the goal scorers. Yeah. So, yeah, that was it, yeah.
And it was a 1-2 with you and, was it Willie Wallace? And you took the ball in. Tremendous, the way that you got in, little 1-2, and just dinked it over Banksy. That must have given you such pleasure. It made you jump almost as high as my house.
It certainly does, and it still makes me jump, but not quite as high these days, Gabbie. But the thing was, what was happening really, it was coming towards the end of the game. I knew there was probably, maybe 5 minutes left, and Billy Bremner, who was very astute, playing the time out, because Leeds United used to do this a lot. Billy took the ball down into the left-hand side corner, and as he took it down there, I thought that there's nobody really around, so I just made a beeline for Billy, and as Billy got the ball, he passed it to Bobby Lennox, who passed it on to my good self, and I was at this time just outside the 18-yard box, so I just turned to the right a little bit, played a 1-2 with Willie Wallace, was on my way to smashing it into the goal, and I was worried because Bobby Moore was closing down on me, and so was Gordon Banks coming at his goal. But I got there before them, and the ball was in the back of the net, and it was a wonderful moment. But I felt completely in control of what was going on, Gabbie. And to me, for me being so young and to be able to do that, I thought that was. I was really pleased with myself without taking it out of context. But when it hit the back of the net, it was fantastic, because as a kid in the Gaubles, playing on the bowling greens, we were always playing England, and I was always scoring for Scotland against England, and that was the dream, and the dream came true.
Well, it is the oldest rivalry in football, the first international game, of course, 1872, but they played friendly games before that. So the rivalry goes back an awful long time. Now, there's an urban myth that before the game kicks off, the 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go before the whistle's blown and you're out into the tunnel and you get lined up, Slim Jim was reading the Racing Post. Is that true or is that fiction?
No, that's fiction. No, Jim Baxter was probably one of the most confident players I ever played with. Great guy. No, he was certainly focused on the game, and so was the other players in the team. And we had some great players, i.e. Dennis Law, Bobby Lennox, Billy Bremner, Tommy Gemmell, John Gregg, and of course Jim Baxter. And you know, we had like I said, we had a lot of players that really wanted to do well against England.
The way I see it, and the way I look at both the teams, my honest opinion, that if the World Cup would have been in Scotland and played at Hampden Park, I think you guys could have been the world champions, because you were a match for England. You look at and you reference the names there. The great Caesar, Billy McNeil, he wasn't in the team. It was McKinnon, he kept him out. And you got players that were in and around that were injured. And when you look, I mean, Dennis Law, there was no greater inside forward than Dennis Law. And Jim Baxter, let's talk briefly about Slim Jim. Why did they call him Slim Jim, and how brilliant a footballer was Jim Baxter? Because in that game, he also played keepy-uppy as well. How did the English players perceive that?
Well, I don't think they were too happy about it, because you know that's something really that you know you don't always do and things like this. But Jim was called Slim Jim because obviously he was tall and he was slim, but he was quite a character. And I remember in the dressing room before the game, Bobby Browne, who was our manager, his style of management was that he would come and have a quiet word with you and wish you all the best. But for some unknown reason, about quarter of an hour before the game started, Bobby Browne, our manager, started to talk, and Jim Baxter had a ball in his hands, and as soon as Bobby, the manager, started to talk, Jim started bouncing the ball, and he says, "Aye, great, Bobby, right, lads, let's go outside." And I was sat there, my first game, 20 years of age, and I'm thinking, what do I do here? It was Bobby Browne trying to do a team talk, and there was Baxter taking most of the team out to the tunnel. So I ended up going towards the tunnel with Baxter, and all we could hear in the background was Bobby Browne shouting, "All the best, lads, all the best, lads." And we just went out and we played England.
But do you think that's, again, looking at it as a football fan, you're going into the Lions' Den, you're literally the free Lions' Den. England are the world champions. You need that little bit of confidence, exuberance, almost arrogance, if you like, to go onto their stage and take that game to them. And I guess that's pretty much what Jim Baxter was doing to all you guys, especially the younger players.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And so was Dennis. I mean, the wonderful thing for me was on the Thursday morning before the game, was when we trained. And I could see what quality that Baxter had, and Dennis Law, and I knew Billy because Billy was at Leeds, and the Scottish players, i.e. John Gregg, Bobby Lennox, Ronnie McKinnon, and that filled me with confidence. I thought England will have to be at their best here, because I thought the manager had picked a really good squad, and the team was complementing each other.
Now, you referenced Leeds United and Billy Bremner, and that was the first port of call for you down south. And there was also another fantastic Scots player, because you guys are called Scottish professors, wasn't you? Because you certainly had cultured feet. Because England used to play kind of rush around game of football, but it was the Scots really that refined association football, and no greater exponent of that than the wee barra, Bobby Collins.
Yeah.
Talk to me about Bobby. How brilliant was he?
Well, it was great when I was 15 to go down to Leeds United, and Bobby Collins was who obviously played for Everton in England and Celtic up in Scotland. And I watched Bobby play. I've seen him in internationals and what have you. And for him to be there and to watch him and see what he did and things like that, it was fantastic. He was a lovely guy. But the thing that other than his ability that really impressed me was he was always a tidy man. Yeah. He was always clean and tidy, always looked smart, and he always had a willing smile. And he was certainly a very confident person, but he was a good player. There's no doubt in that.
Now, my understanding of Wee Barra is a little fella that's got quite a lot to say for himself. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I think most wee guys have, don't they?
Yeah.
I think the big guys are the gentle giants, because not only was Bobby Collins there, but at the time I went there, John Charles come back from Italy. So we had John Charles there. John would play either centre forward or centre.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Hey, it's Sharon, and here's where it gets interesting. Raise your hand if you want salon perfect nails for just $2 a manicure. Yeah, me too. With the Olive & June Mani system, you can say goodbye to expensive services that take hours and hours and love your nails more than ever. I would know. I've been doing it for years. Get 20% off your first Mani system with code PERFECTMANI20 at oliveandjune.com/PERFECTMANI20. That's PERFECTMANI20 at oliveandjune.com/PERFECTMANI20.
Half. And Bobby Collins, and they were great examples for the young players who, of course, all went on to have great careers at Leeds, i.e. Norman Hunter, Billy Bremner. You can go through them all. Gary Sprake, Eddie Gray, Peter Lorimer, all these guys, and I'm sure, and Jimmy Greenough as well. Yeah. I'm sure they picked up a lot from the likes of John Charles and Bobby Collins. And I know that Revie knew that. And then Revie was a great student of the game, Don Revie. And what he did for Leeds United, I think, was just short of amazing. And it's such a shame, really, that they did put their foot in quite a lot. And I think if they hadn't done that, I think they would be talked of more. A lot of people resented that. It wasn't very nice, that. But when they had the ball, it was very difficult to get the ball back off them.
Yeah, Alan Hudson, a pal of mine, and I do shows with Uddy. He says the only reason that Revie got rid of Jimmy was because he wouldn't leave his foot in. And you're right, Leeds did have that tag of being dirty, but Leeds also, and we have to say it as well with balance, Leeds United were one of the greatest British teams, certainly in my lifetime.
Yeah, they definitely were.
And they had a young boy that come from Manchester United named Giles. He was a decent player as well, wasn't he? Was Johnny around in them days?
Well, the thing was, at Leeds, you had Bobby Collins and Billy Bremner. Billy at first was a winger, so Billy moved into wing half, and he was in midfield with Bobby. And then, of course, when just before Bobby finished, John Giles came to Leeds, but he played on the right wing. But Revie decided that because he was so good with both feet, that he would put him in the middle of the park. And of course, that's where Johnny's career really took off more. And he was a fabulous footballer, was Johnny Giles. But he was also a player that could look after himself.
Silent assassin. That's why he was called, wasn't he? Now you've left Leeds and you've gone from Whippets and Hats and up there in Yorkshire, straight down onto the King's Road to West London to Chelsea. It couldn't have been any different, could it? It's poles apart Leeds and Chelsea. How did that move go?
Well, the thing was, Tommy Docherty tried to get me before I moved to Leeds as a 15-year-old. Yeah. And, of course, when I left Leeds and I got a bit in the papers from a couple of newspaper guys that I knew, he was the first on the phone, and he was quick in, and I talked to him, and everything was more or less decided. And then there was quite a few other clubs come in, but it was too late. I was going to Chelsea. But Tommy Docherty, in my opinion, was a great manager, but he doesn't get a lot of the credit that he deserves, because he's a very funny guy. He lives life with a smile. But when we were at Chelsea with Tommy Docherty, we were top of the league down there, and only for a terrible incident at the club, we could have gone on to win the First Division Championship. And he did it again with Man United. He nearly won the First Division Championship with Man United. So he was certainly a great manager in the making, and he was a young manager when he got me to Chelsea. But I loved it at Chelsea. And I don't know if Alan can remember Alan Hudson, but when I was at Chelsea, Tommy Docherty always encouraged the players to coach. And he said to the younger players that he if anybody was interested in doing any coaching, that they could go along and do some coaching with the young players at Chelsea on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night. Yeah. But I actually coached Alan when he was 14, Alan Hudson. I don't think he knows that. I'm not sure, because I never ever mentioned it to him. But you could see then that Alan was going to be a special talent, and he certainly had a wonderful career. And it just shows you never know what's around the corner. You never know who you're with, Gabbie. So, that life's quite amazing.
And Alan was around the first team dressing room as well, and Alan talks fondly about them Tuesdays and Thursday nights, because Alan went in at Fulham and he was told he was too small, and his dad took him to Chelsea because his older brother was at Chelsea.
Yeah, his brother was a nice lad. He was a funny lad. His brother, he played in the left wing. Yeah,
but you had some great players there. It was a Docherty Diamond era, wasn't it? You got George Graham there, Terry Venables. When you reference that situation, was that at Blackpool when 8 players got a little bit worse for wear?
Yeah, that was the trouble. Yeah. They broke a curfew, and we were never the same after that. Unfortunately, that was one of the sad parts of my career, because we were all so young, but we were all together, and the team spirit was quite amazing. A lot of it was fostered by Tommy Docherty, but a lot of it was fostered by the players at Chelsea, especially Terry Venables, the captain. Terry was a smashing guy, and he was a guy that would build up the team spirit, and alongside the Tommy Docherty and the coach, who was Dave Sexton, who had a great career in management as well.
Al always says he was a great coach, not so much a great manager. Sadly, Tommy left and Dave took over. But you had you got a young Peter Osgood, Eddie McCready was there. You had some fantastic players, and Chelsea, as great as Leeds were in that mid-60s to mid-70s era, Chelsea were just 1 or 2 players away. Now, I'm guessing that if we was talking now to Tommy Marder says, do you know what? Sometimes I wished I had just turned the cheek or took no notice of what went on, because there was a culture at the football club, but boy, could these kids play football as well.
I think you would have to ask the boss that, because that was what happened. But the thing is as well, with due respect to the manager, you have to have discipline as well. Yeah. But I tend to agree with you a little bit, Gabbie, insofar as if the Doc would have done it behind behind closed doors, I think it would have been better for him and for the team, because we were never the same after that.
And then your debut for Chelsea, I would ask you your favourite football ground, but I'm guessing you're going to say St Andrews. Thanks for that. 21st of November 1964, 2 days before I was born, you scored your two league goals for Chelsea when you stuffed us 6-1. But it was the October beforehand that you made your League Cup debut, didn't you, for Chelsea, again against Birmingham City? Yeah,
that's and I think I scored on that as well. I'm not 100% sure, but the thing was I was quite unfortunate because I had 2 delayed debuts before I actually made my debut. I was 17 and I was taken to Sheffield with the first team, and Terry Venables was ill, and it looked like Terry wasn't going to make the game. But as it was, Terry was okay in the end, so I sat in the dugout. So I nearly made my debut at Sheffield Wednesday, and then that happened again. We were playing Manchester United, and I got a phone call on the Saturday morning that I had to get to Heathrow Airport and get up to Manchester, and I'd be picked up at Manchester Airport and taken to Old Trafford. And when I got to Old Trafford, Terry was okay, and I missed it again. So I watched the game, and I watched the Dennis Law hat-trick that day, a hat-trick of headers, which was quite amazing. But then I did eventually make my debut when I was 18, and my league debut was, like you say, was at Birmingham. But I was coming along really nicely, and things were, I was getting stronger and all the rest of it, and a lot of things were happening for me. And of course, we played Birmingham at St Andrews, and we beat Birmingham 6-1. I got 2, and Big George Graham, who was a great player, George got 3, and I can't remember who got the other one. But I remember the headlines in the papers saying Chelsea as good as Busby's best, and that was a great start to my career.
And then it wasn't long after that you'd been in to see Tommy, and you put a couple of transfer requests in, and he told you to do one and jog on the first time. But I'm guessing after...
He chased me out of the dressing room. Chased me out of his office.
He wasn't very happy. He wasn't impressed.
No.
But what happened? How come you moved to Sheffield Wednesday? Was it just the fact that you was in and out of the team, and all you wanted to do was play football? Because there was no doubt in your ability, because Sheffield Wednesday paid $37,500 and made it a British transfer record for a teenager in 1965. Yeah, well,
to be honest, Gabbie, that kind of filled me with a lot of confidence. Yeah. I thought if, a respected manager like Alan Browne, who was at Sheffield Wednesday, if he was paying that amount of money for me, plus Chelsea were holding out for that kind of money, I thought, I can't lose here, because I was obviously rated at Chelsea, and then going to Sheffield Wednesday for that amount of money, it was up to me just to go out and play football. Yeah. And that's what I did. And to Alan Browne's credit, at Sheffield Wednesday, Alan Browne never ever told me how to play. He never said anything that I was doing this right, I was doing this wrong. He always let me get on and enjoy my football. And he was a terrific manager, probably one of the best managers that was in the game at that time. But like I said, he was very well respected, and it was great to repay some of that money by getting to the cup final in '66.
Now, you got to the cup final and you scored, but before the cup final, you played in the semi-final against your former team. Now, I watched the YouTube clip, and I'm guessing when you play against your former team, you're absolutely elated. You wasn't, was you, when you scored that goal against Chelsea?
No, I wasn't. I think it was just circumstances, Gabbie, because the year before I was in the Chelsea squad and we got Liverpool in the semi-finals at Villa Park. And of course we got beat 2-0 then as well. And I know how disappointed everybody was because we were a young side. And when we won, for whatever reason, I was thinking about, that was 2 years in a row that they'd lost at the semi-final stage. So although I was absolutely, elated for Sheffield Wednesday, for our fans, and for myself, I just really did genuinely feel sorry for Chelsea.
Now, Sheffield Wednesday and your next club, Wolverhampton, we're going to stay at Sheffield for a while and talk about those days and the cup final.
Yeah.
But them were the teams that you played about 150 games each, didn't you? Or probably slightly more, give and take. They were the two teams that largely football fans will remember you at, Sheffield Wednesday and at Wolverhampton Wanderers. What was life like back up north, back in Yorkshire, or South Yorkshire? Stringfellow had just opened a club up there, so it's a little bit like the King's Road, wasn't it? Going from the clubs on the King's Road back to Stringfellows.
Yeah, well, Sheffield was quite a buzzing place because Joe Cocker was playing in the local disco. There was quite a lot of guys around that were big names, Dave Berry, people like that. There was the Human League not long after that started. Like you said, Peter Stringfellow, he had a club outside Sheffield, and then he moved into Sheffield, and he called it the Penthouse or something like that. Yeah. But I would go in there and see him, and it was quite unusual because his mum was always on the door taking the money.
To listen to the rest of this podcast, please go to www.patreon.com/SRBmedia, or just follow the links in the description. Thank you.
As dawn broke over the seven seas, the pirates of the Crimson Galleon set sail for adventure. But there was one problem: paperwork. Mountains of it. Filing, invoices, you name it.
This work ain't fit for a pirate.
Luckily, their captain had an idea. She used the smart buying tools on Amazon Business, so they could work more efficiently and get back to doing what they do best. I know, right? Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.